Well, it's that time of year again where it's time to give a middle finger salute farewell to all of the pieces of crap I have seen in 2023. Before I start, a couple things to mention. Number one, I didn't see every bad film that came out this year. There's some movies I've heard nothing but bad things about and I decided not to waste my time on. So don't expect films like Skinamarink, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, Good Burger 2, Ghosted, or as my friend KitchenAid Whiskey Jones calls it, I'm a farmer! Or Champions to be on the list. My worst of the year list are only movies that I saw this year and that I hated. Second of all, this is just my own personal opinion, so if you like any of these films on this list, I am very happy for you that you enjoyed them. I just didn't. In fact, I would love for you to tell me some of your worst films that you've seen in 2023 in the comments down below. With all that out of the way, let's get started. The last of the DCEU before the series gets rebooted, and all I have to say is, oh how the mighty have fallen. It was a decent start with Man of Steel, but things started to take a nosedive as the years pass. Even though I enjoyed the first Aquaman, there were so many red flags behind the scenes that prevented me from being excited about this film. After seeing it, it was exactly what I thought it would be, and at times even worse. Aquaman has been turned into a walking joke just like Thor, where he acts like a joking idiot. Black Manta has become a bigger villain's little bitch, the CGI was terrible, and Amber Heard was in this movie much longer than I would have liked. Yes, her screen time was cut down due to the public despising her, but she was still in the movie for 20 minutes. I would have preferred her character either getting killed off or hell, even recast at this point. There was even one moment where Mera saves Aquaman, and I was just like, done. Not to mention, Aquaman goes through no arc and no character development. If this movie was never made, nothing would have changed. I will give it that the actors did what they can for what little the script gave them. The designs of Atlantis is cool, as well as the civilians, and it did have some decent action scenes. But that's all it has for me. Now, this may not be the worst comic book film I've seen this year, or even the worst DC film on this list, but I will say this is still a poor way to end the DCEU.
You're not as bad at this as you think. If you lead, the Seven Kingdoms will follow.
Look, I didn't mean to put the two DCEU films right next to each other, it just sort of happened that way. However, as bad as Aquaman 2 is, it is the Dark Knight compared to The Flash. Now, this film was in development hell for some time, and just like Aquaman 2, there were so many red flags behind the scenes. As much of a psychopath Ezra Miller is, he is the least of this film's concerns. It would have sucked with or without him. The CGI is some of the worst CGI I have seen in any comic book film, period. Seriously, it is so bad it makes Thor Love and Thunder look like a godsend by comparison, especially with the falling CGI babies where Barry puts one of the babies in a fucking microwave. And no, I am not making that up. The alternate 18-year-old Barry Allen is super annoying in this film, and I wanted to smack him every time he opened his mouth. The cameos felt forced. Michael Keaton, as much as I love his Batman, looks so bored to be in this movie. The action scenes look like cutscenes from a PlayStation 2 game, and the plot is non-existent. It might as well be called Shit Happens, the movie, with no consistent flow and no strong narrative, where plot points are dropped and not brought back up until the script requires it. Honestly, I am so happy this film bombed and we will never see a sequel to this shit. Good riddance.
It's not Clark.
My name is Kara.
I'm
Well, we're Barry.
You know, I remember long ago when I was 8 years old and my dad introduced me to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I remember loving that movie since. Now, the name Indiana Jones has been tarnished so many times at this point, and Dial of Destiny is no exception. Seeing how I didn't like Crystal Skull, it seemed the series would just keep going down, and I was absolutely right. Harrison Ford just seems tired of this franchise and acts like he wants to put his character out of his misery. Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character is super annoying and she doesn't know when to shut up. Mads Mikkelsen's character is so forgettable. The lighting and cinematography are dull and ugly. Seriously, it looks like camera lenses were smeared with Vaseline half the time. The CGI and green screen were so bad they can give Crystal Skull a run for its money, and Marion showing up at the end is beyond forced. Seriously, Disney, please put this character to rest for the love of God. Everyone is tired of you beating this poor character to the ground. Just stop already!
Stop! Stop! He's already dead.
Sorry! But I've been looking for this all my life.
You know, I was hoping that this could be a fun mafia comedy with Toni Collette. I liked her in other films, but let me tell you, this is not one of them. Mafia Mama is one of the most annoying comedies I have seen all year long. Toni Collette's character was so annoying who didn't know when to shut up. Every time she opened her mouth, I wanted to punch her. Same goes for her misandrous friend who thinks that all men are just the same disgusting pigs. The story is filled with predictable moments and cliches that anyone could see a mile away. However, the worst aspect of this film is that it's a comedy and it's not funny. Not one joke landed for me. Even some jokes that weren't funny to start with ends up repeating itself over and over, such as the spitting joke or the Godfather joke. I would just say skip this film. There's no reason to watch it. It's not funny, it's annoying, and it's a pain to sit through. If you want to watch a great mafia movie, just watch The Godfather again.
I am tired of this war. My family is tired of this war. Oh my gosh, TripAdvisor does not lie. Can I get another scoop?
While I have a lot of respect for the original Exorcist, I don't consider it a horror masterpiece like so many do. In fact, I do find it a tad bit overrated if you want me to be honest. Although I will say that Exorcist Believer, I had little to no faith in, no pun intended, in this, especially since it was directed by the same guy who gave us Halloween Ends, and this film wasn't any better. Now, I may not be as angry as some Exorcist fans, but even I can't defend this shit. Most of the acting sucked, the music is so forgettable, and yes, that includes the remix of the iconic Tubular Bells. The characters are dull and lifeless, and the scares are non-existent, and even at times more laughable than the original. Ellen Burstyn's character, Chris McNeil from the first film, is wasted. The editing is too choppy, the pacing drags, and worst of all, it's boring. I wasn't as angry with this film as I was just bored as shit. Yes, it has a couple of good performances and some decent cinematography, but everything else is a train wreck. Honestly, if you want a good sequel to The Exorcist, just watch Exorcist 3, and that's all you need. This film sucks cocks in hell. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse than the Jurassic World movies, this film comes along and makes the film even worse than all of the Jurassic Park sequels combined. Based on the trailers, it looked like an interesting original sci-fi movie with dinosaurs. That should be awesome, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not the case here. Adam Driver's performance is subpar at best, the story is very generic and predictable, the characters are very forgettable, and I can't remember a single one's name. The CGI on the dinosaurs look so awful, they make the horrible CGI in all the Jurassic World movies look like Da Vinci, and worst of all, it's boring! How do you make Adam Driver and dinosaurs boring? What makes this film worse for me is that it had strong potential to not just be good, but maybe even great. Seriously, if you want to watch a good dinosaur movie, just stick to watching the original Jurassic Park film. Hell, go watch Land Before Time, because while yes, it is animated, it has a great touching story and fun characters. This film deserves to be hit by the meteor that killed the dinosaurs.
We're gonna get home.
Oh, finally.
Ready?
If you remember last year, I said that Firestarter 2022 is the worst Stephen King adaptation I have ever seen. Well, this film says hold my beer and end up making another one that is even worse. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the original. I don't hate it by any means, but I didn't think it was anything special either. However, I will gladly take that film over this piece of shit any day. The acting is atrocious, the dialogue is awful, the writing is a joke, the CGI is laughably bad, the direction is terrible, the scares are non-existent, and the characters are so dull and bland. When it was revealed what He Who Walks Behind the Rose monster looks like, I laughed my ass off. He looked like a poor man's version of Groot from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Not to mention, it is so boring. I didn't care what was going on half the time. Even the score is so forgettable. Hell, Firestarter 2022 at least had some good score by John Carpenter. I wasn't expecting this film to be good, but wow, they took the term bad Stephen King adaptation to a whole new level. I haven't read the original story that this was based on, but seeing how there have been no good Children of the Corn film adaptations, I'm really questioning if the short story was all that good to begin with, or if it was just made by people who never gave a shit about the original source material. Do not watch this film under any circumstance.
Children of the Corn.
It should be no surprise to my subscribers that I love anime. However, Saint Seiya was one that flew under the radar for me. I didn't see the anime or read the manga and can only judge this as a standalone film. After seeing this, sometimes I wonder if I'm crazy or just plain stupid for doing this because this movie fucking sucks. The acting is terrible, and that includes from great talents like Sean Bean and Funkin Jensen, and don't even get me started on Makino as Pegasus Seiya. The story is your generic Chosen One film. The dialogue feels bland and lifeless with lines like, choose your own destiny. The characters have no development, personality, or chemistry with each other, and act as interesting as a wet slice of bread. The pacing feels too fast, especially for a 2-hour film. The CGI is terrible, and the editing is choppy. Hell, even the fight scenes make me feel like I was watching someone play a PS1 fighting video game. Many people have said that it is the 2023's version of Dragon Ball Evolution, and it really shows. I have been told by many Saint Seiya fans that this is a poor adaptation of the original source material. I can't say myself since, again, I'm not familiar with the original source material. With that being said, this film is a train wreck as both an adaptation and a standalone film. After seeing this, I have no intention of watching any more American live-action adaptations of anime/manga, unless it's a sequel to Alita Battle Angel. Hollywood doesn't care, so why should I?
Once he learns to control it, no living man will be able to stop him.
You might want to buckle up.
Well, once Winnie the Pooh went public domain, it didn't take long for someone to quickly hop on the train and make a horror film out of it. Truth be told, I wasn't expecting this movie to be good, at all. However, the optimistic side of me was hoping that at the very least it would be a dumb but fun guilty kind of pleasure movie, or a so bad it's enjoyable kind of movie. Unfortunately, they couldn't even manage to do that. Nothing in this film worked. From the poor acting all around, to the dull and forgettable characters with no personality, to the awful camera work and editing. Hell, even the kills are a joke. I get that the film was made under a $100,000 budget, but that's not an excuse for the poor ass writing. Plus, it tries to act like a silly parody of slasher films, but it never runs with its silly concept and just ends up playing itself too fucking serious and straight. Even though this is only at number 2, I could say that this is the most poorly made film I have seen all year. I understand that the director is planning to do the same thing with Peter Pan and Bambi, but after seeing this, I couldn't give two flying shits about seeing any more of this guy's work. Leave my precious childhood icons out of your dumbass horror films. Fuck you! Before I get to my number 1, let me address some dishonorable mentions real quick. Some terrible films that I saw that didn't quite make my top 10 list. And they include, in no order, Now, for my number 1, it isn't a film that is as poorly made as the last few entries. If I had to judge on the levels of filmmaking techniques, then Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey would definitely be the worst. However, my number 1 was the one that offended me the most. It may not be the most poorly made movie released this year, but it was the one that insulted me more than any of the entries, which is why my number 1 worst film of 2023 is... It may surprise you that this is number 1, especially if you watch our Cool Kids livestream, and I even pointed out some positives in that review. Well, I feel like I was too fucking nice to this film back then, because it got so much worse over time with thought. Even the positives that I pointed out don't even matter anymore. Who cares if Joaquin Phoenix's performance was good? He's good in anything! Who cares about the visuals in the plain sea? The scene drags on and means nothing! Not only that, but the pacing all around is dreadful. It drags at a snail's pace. The tone is way too fucking mean-spirited, where everyone decides to bully this guy who has mental health problems. Don't worry, we'll get to that soon enough. And even the penis monster has no purpose in this film, not to mention the CGI on him is awful. However, even those elements aren't what make this my #1 worst film of the year. No. The reason why this is my #1 worst film of the year is because it is a blatant middle finger to people who are struggling with mental health issues. Joaquin Phoenix is a guy with severe anxiety disorder, and the world constantly bullies him, and that includes his mother and his therapist, to the point where he dies at the end.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Is Ari Aster trying to say, people with mental health problems are pathetic, the world should treat them like shit and they should die? The reason this pisses me off so much is because I suffer from severe anxiety and depression disorders. I feel like those with mental health problems should be treated fairly, and people need to take this shit more seriously. Therapy is a healthy way to talk about your struggles and find ways to cope with your issues. Ari Aster, on the other hand, just has his head so far up his ass and just says, nah, fuck those people. Fuck therapy. It doesn't do shit. The world would be better off without these people who struggle with these mental health problems. Fuck you, Ari Aster! Because of this, I will never be watching any more movies made by this asshole. If he doesn't take mental health seriously, then he is not worth my time. With all that being said, I have no doubt in saying that Beau is Afraid is easily the worst film I have seen in 2023. And that's all I got for the worst films I have seen in 2023. Share in the comments below what your worst films of 2023 are. Also, stay tuned for when I get to reward myself by talking about my favorite films of 2023. Until then, have a good day.